The interview. It's the heart and soul of your film. It navigates and directs the emotional arc of your story, but how do you execute it to perfection? How do you make it look good, ask the right questions, and how do you edit without getting stressed out? That's what we're gonna talk about today. I'm Drew with Resonate Films. Let's get into it. So before we arrive on set, we should be prepared and do the best we can with researching the location and developing good questions that coincide with our story. Every story is different, but each maintains certain attributes that you can apply to any interview. Here's some talking points or lead-ins that will help the conversational flow. Like, why did you get involved in your line of work? Or what are some of the unique challenges you face? What is your greatest desire in your context? How would you like to challenge people or give a call to action? What is the greatest misconception in your line of work or context? All of these are monumental to crafting a story. You're identifying desire, conflict, and providing a resolution. If you want to tell a story through your interview, make sure your questions involve these aspects. Now, once we've made it past the pre-production phase, it's time for the day of the shoot. Here's a few pointers for setting up lighting and composition. As a small production crew, a lot of times when I'm shooting an interview, it's on location, not in a studio, so you're left to the elements of the location's unique lighting and sound qualities, whether that be fluorescent lighting, reverb, a loud fan, or refrigerator. And so you need to be aware of all these elements that could compromise the interview. If I walk into a location that I've never seen before, the first thing I do is look for where I want to place my subject in the room, and also what lights I can turn off. Mastering light is all about control, so you want to turn off the lights and work with either a completely blank canvas or use the available natural light. Just be careful that you don't blow out your highlights, but balance and control the ambience in the room with lights that you set up or black out the windows. The next thing I want to do is place my subject away from the background to create a little depth. If you're in a cramped space, the best way to do this is to place them in the L of the room to get the maximum amount of depth. Then it's time to set up your lights. You don't want it to feel sourcey but natural, so you'll want to bring some sort of diffusion to soften the light. And if you're just keeping things traditional, you can try Rembrandt lighting, which is where you set the light about 45 degrees from your subject and the camera, and the result is a small triangle of light under your subject's eye. And depending on the creative look you're going for, you can add some ambient light as a fill with a bounce, or subtract the light with negative fill. Also, adding practical lights in the background really helps to create some visual interest. This isn't a lighting master course, but this will get you started. Then you'll want to place your camera on the shadow or dark side of the face to create a sort of checkerboard pattern from dark to light. When it comes to audio, I prefer having a mic boomed out of frame. And for distance from your subject, I've heard some different things, but I think a good rule is to keep it about 18 inches from your subject's mouth and then point it more towards the center of their chest. As they speak out into a directional mic, you'll get the best quality that way. So that's basically how I would set up an interview. Now let's move into how to conduct the interview. And conducting the interview, honestly, there's so many different routes and methods you can use, but here are some that I like to apply and feel like work for me. First is to prepare the interviewee ahead of time. This doesn't mean you need to give them a list of questions, but you should inform them about what to expect. Discuss what they should wear and generally tell them what you'll be discussing. On the day of the interview, you want them to feel as relaxed as possible. Do your best to make them feel like the camera is not in the room. Most people are naturally a little camera shy, so I would recommend getting them warmed up by having a pre-interview interview. Just talk to them, begin a conversation. When it comes to your body language, do your best to not be distracted by the technical aspects, setting up the lights, setting up the mic, but be present in the moment. Maintain eye contact, respond to some of their answers like you're having a conversation, and if you do bring a list of questions, make it feel natural, like you're discussing, not like you're conducting a job interview. Play off their emotions, dive deeper into certain aspects if you have to. And I've said this before, but if you're only asking basic questions, you're only gonna get basic answers. So one way to help keep things conversational is to approach the interview not with questions, but with curiosity. And this will help keep the humanity and authenticity in the conversation. Editing an interview is like taking all these ingredients and making something of it. You're really crafting the story here. And I wouldn't say manipulating it, but you're drawing out the essence of the story. And practically the first thing I do is sync up the audio and actually EQ the sound so that I have the best version during playback. And typically my interviews are anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour in length. And most finished pieces I'm working with need to be 3 to 10 minutes in length, so there's a lot of trimming to do. Usually the first time I listen to the interview, it might have been several weeks since I filmed. So I tend to listen to the interview at 2 times speed and only editing out the interview questions. And then this is important, I immediately watch it back again, trimming that version down to about 50% of the original length. And the reason I say that it's important to watch it back immediately is because you really want to be well versed in what they're saying so that you're confident you can remove chunks of the conversation that aren't important to the story. Also, one note here is I save a version of the original just to reference if I need to go back. Okay, so now that it's half the length of the original, we begin to fine tune it by really trimming out a lot of the fat that is unimportant to the story at hand. Mostly what I'm looking for is this: can I remove this statement or phrase and the story still makes sense? And 2, does it communicate any great measure of emotional, transitional, or informational weight to the story? If the answer is no, take it out, edit it. After I trim that second version down another 50%, we really are into a stage where we are near completion. At this point, I'm pretty well versed in what they're saying, and now I'm looking for story beats and quotable sayings that could be used as an intro or transitional piece. And I begin arranging from there. While you're editing an interview, think of yourself as a musical composer, which is composing a piece of emotional resonance. It doesn't always have to have a crescendo, but you are sensitive and have the self-awareness to know when to place a note, when to pick up the pace, and when to slow it down. So I hope this was a help to you. If you have any questions or other ideas that you implement in an interview, love to hear from you. Put it in the comments. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.